Welcome to Grammar Hacks, the podcast that makes English grammar make sense. I'm Adam.
And I'm Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Sarah, I want to read you a book dedication. It's pretty famous in grammar circles. It says, "This book is dedicated to my parents, Ayn Rand and God."
Wow, so this person is the child of a philosopher and a divine being? That's quite the family tree.
Right? Or take this one from a newspaper article about a documentary. Among those interviewed were his two ex-wives, Chris Christopherson and Robert Duvall.
So, two legendary actors were married to this guy? That's some serious gossip. The problem, of course, is that both of those sentences are missing one tiny, powerful, and fiercely debated punctuation mark.
And that little troublemaker is our topic for today, the serial comma, also known as the Oxford comma.
It's just a comma, but it has started arguments, changed the meaning of sentences, and even decided a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what it is, why people fight about it, and how to use it to make your own writing crystal clear.
This is the story of the mightiest little mark in punctuation. Okay, let's get down to basics. What exactly is the serial or Oxford comma?
It's super simple. It's the final comma in a list of three or more things, placed just before the conjunction, like and or. For example, if I say, I need to buy bread, milk, and cheese, that comma after milk is the serial comma.
So why is it called the Oxford comma?
Because it was traditionally used by printers, readers, and editors at the Oxford University Press. So the name stuck. But you can call it a serial comma or an Oxford comma. They're the same thing.
Got it. So if it's that simple, why is it so controversial?
Because it's technically optional. Some of the most respected style guides in the world disagree on whether you should use it. It's a full-on grammar war, and people have very strong feelings.
All right, let's hear the arguments. First up, team pro comma. Why do people insist on using it?
The number one reason is clarity. Proponents argue that the serial comma prevents ambiguity. It clearly separates each item in the list, so there's no confusion.
This brings us back to our intro examples. Without the comma, my parents, Ayn Rand and God, makes it sound like Ayn Rand and God are the parents. With the comma, it's a clear list of three separate entities, my parents, Ayn Rand, and God.
Exactly. Or think of this classic example. We invited the Strichters, JFK, and Stalin. Without a comma after JFK, it sounds like you've invited two strippers who happen to be named JFK and Stalin.
Which would be a very different kind of party. But with the comma, we invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. It's clear you've invited three separate guests, some strippers, a former president, and a Soviet dictator. The comma prevents the last two items from looking like a description of the first.
So that's the main argument for the serial comma. It's a tool for precision.
Okay, so what about team anti-comma? Why would anyone argue against clarity?
Well, their main argument is that it's often redundant. In a simple list like red, white, and blue, the word and already separates the last two items. They argue that adding a comma is unnecessary clutter.
That makes some sense. It's also a big deal in journalism. Style guides like the Associated Press style book traditionally advise against it to save space in newspaper columns where every character counts.
And here's their counterpunch. Sometimes the serial comma can actually create ambiguity instead of fixing it.
How is that possible?
Let's flip one of our earlier examples. Imagine a dedication that reads, "To my mother, Ayn Rand, and God." With the serial comma, it could be read as a list of three people. But it could also be read as being dedicated to two people, my mother, who is Ayn Rand, and God.
Because the phrase Ayn Rand could now be seen as in a positive, a little bit of extra information describing the mother.
Exactly. So the anti-comma camp says that since the comma doesn't always fix ambiguity and can sometimes cause it, the best approach is to just write clearer sentences in the first place.
Okay, so we have arguments for and against, but you mentioned this little comma was at the center of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. That sounds like a story we need to hear.
It's a fantastic story for grammar nerds. In 2017, a group of dairy truck drivers in Maine sued their company, Oakhurst Dairy, for about $10 million in unpaid overtime.
$10 million over a comma?
You bet. The whole case came down to one sentence in Maine state law. The law listed activities that were not eligible for overtime pay. The list included the canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, packing for shipment or distribution of certain food products.
Okay, I see the list, but where's the problem?
The problem is the missing serial comma before or distribution. The company argued that the list was meant to exempt two separate activities, packing for shipment and distribution. Since the driver's job was distribution, the company said they didn't qualify for overtime.
But the drivers had a different interpretation, right?
They sure did. They argued that because there was no comma, the phrase packing for shipment or distribution should be read as one single activity. Their job was distributing goods, not packing them for distribution. Therefore, they argued the exemption didn't apply to them.
So what did the court decide?
The court agreed with the drivers. The judge ruled that the lack of a serial comma made the law ambiguous. And because the law was ambiguous, it had to be interpreted in favor of the workers. The company ended up settling with the drivers for $5 million.
Wow, that is officially the most expensive comma I've ever heard of. It just goes to show that this little mark really does matter.
All right, grammar hackers, it's time for a quick practice round. We'll call this You Be the Editor. I'll read a sentence, and you decide if adding a serial comma would make it clearer. Ready?
Sentence number 1. For breakfast, I had eggs, toast, and orange juice. What do you think? Here, it's probably not necessary. It's very unlikely anyone would think toast and orange juice is a single combined dish. So leaving it out is fine.
Okay, sentence number 2. My favorite bands are the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who.
This is another simple list where you probably don't need the comma. The meaning is perfectly clear without it.
Last one, sentence number 3. The tour bus passengers included the band's roadies, the lead singer's parents, and a pack of wild dogs.
This one is a definite yes for the serial comma. Without it, it sounds like the lead singer's parents are a pack of wild dogs. Adding a comma after parents makes it clear that we're talking about 3 separate groups.
So, what's the final verdict? To use the serial comma or not to use it?
The real answer is it depends on your style guide. Academic guides like Chicago, MLA, and APA require it. Journalistic guides like AP Style say to leave it out in simple lists, but use it if it's needed for clarity.
So, the best hack is to know your audience and your style guide. But when in doubt, the safest bet is to do whatever makes your sentence clearest. Clarity is always the most important rule.
Our challenge for you this week is to pick a side. Are you team serial comma or team no comma? Pay attention to lists you see in articles, books, and ads. See which style is being used and decide if you agree with it.
That's all for episode 13 of Grammar Hacks. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world's most controversial comma, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And we'd love it if you left us a review. It helps other grammar lovers find the show.
Until next time, keep your writing clear, concise, and comma-full.